Alright, Amazon. This is your instructor, Mr. Bowie here. So I'm talking to you guys about floats. Float is used for pushing images and other blocks elements to the left or right of their parents. In this code, we have a paragraph element with a child image element inside of it. So we're going through lesson 6 about floats. So in here, you just see a paragraph with some text images and an image tag that goes to this URL. So without float, you just see that this image is not wrapped around. It's kind of spaced out and not fully developed. So when you have a float coded in there, you see that the image is on the side that's correctly floating, and then you also have the text. So it's as simple as this. You just put period left image inside, you put float left. So the key term you guys want to remember is float. And if you guys need any more instructions or additional resources, go here, go to quackit.com, go to CSS. So you look for CSS tutorials. Just look for floats. So here we just type in float, CSS float. You can float an element to the left or right so that the other content flows around it. So the CSS float property enables you to determine where to position an element relative to other elements on the page. When you use the float property, other elements will simply wrap around the element you applied the float to. So here, for a float example, we set a div element to float left, which results in the rest of the content wrapping around it. So note that I'm applying a margin to the right of the bottom of the box so that the rest of the content doesn't run right up against the box. So here you can see that the CSS style, you just put period float left, padding to 20 pixels, margin 0, 10 pixels, 10 pixels, 0, background to gold. And for the style, and here this is what your float would be. So here you have your div class, your float left, inside here this is what it's pertaining to. And then if you want to do a float right, same way, just put right. If you want to align it side by side, you go ahead and put float left, and then you put another one, background gold, lime green, background lime green, orange, and then you go ahead and just put that in there. And also, that's just a little bit about the position of floats. All right, so there we have it. If you guys want to see the advanced CSS version of it, so we're going to go to media queries. Media queries allows you to apply a CSS rule only when the browser screen is a certain size. When we use media queries to switch to a different set of rules on a smaller screen, so here you just have media minimum width 576 pixels, and you have a container width 540 pixels. Media queries use a syntax a media condition to apply standard CSS code. An example above, the CSS rule only applies when the browser window is a minimum width of 576 pixels. If less, the CSS will not apply. So we use media queries to control responsive designs, and they should be a part of all your CSS going forward. In order for a media query to work properly, we need to include the block of code in the head section of the HTML. It will never change. So this tells the HTML to set all the content of the size of the border browser window and set the initial scale to 1. So here, again, we just have the viewport content width, and the initial scale to 1.0. So we also have this code called hover. So hover is one of the pseudo-classes in CSS. You can use hover to create a hover effect to an element without using JavaScript. So here you just have button hover, and then you go ahead and just have put your mouse through it, and then it will highlight it to whatever background color you want it to be. We have also a focus. Focus takes effects when an element has a focus. So here you would use semicolon focus, and you just have the border to whatever color you want. And here you can see the picture is focused when you go ahead and click on it or interact with it. And then you also have the pseudo element ninth child. So it's used in tables to select an odd, even rows or selecting a certain element. So here you have a ninth child even, background color light blue, and then here I'll just have inherit the whole light blue color. Same thing with row 4. So here it's inherit from row 2 to row 4. So here some value, same thing. So RGBA color. So Just like an RGB color, except it adds an alpha transparency. Elements can now be semi-transparent on the page. We use RGBA for 4 parameters. So RGB stands for red, green, and blue, and A stands for alpha. Alpha is between a value to 0 to 1, and so completely opaque. So you can see the alpha, just like a very transparency color for it. And you could use a 0.5, which means it's 50%, 1 meaning it's 100%, and you guys could kind of use a decimal system from there. So here are key terms you guys want to remember is hover, media queries, and RGBA, red, green, blue, alpha. So if you guys want to do a little bit more additional resources, finding and research, just go to this website right here, qhmit.com. And it's going to be the @ rules. So if you just look for the @ rules here, go down, you can type in media queries, and then the media @ rule here, same way. And also if you guys want to check out the select hover and Pseudo-Classes, you can. So here you select cover, bam. So whenever you hover over it, it's highlighted. That's what it's saying. And also the Pseudo-Classes. So here you have a Pseudo-Classes, move over me. Here you go. It's highlighted to blue. Get me to focus. That's cool. So that's just a little bit more about lesson 6.1. So here we're going to pull up example 6.1. You can see that our meta name, we all have that. This is going to be an HTML training lessons template. So this is going to be a little bit more advanced CSS. So here you have your button color, light ground, your focus, your hover, your table, your left image float left, and then you have your row, and then you just have some paragraphs. So go ahead, let's go type this in. So it's going to be 6-1 examples.html. Let's open it. We don't have to change that. So here we could click a button, focus. Here we have a 9-tail inherent 2 properties. Here we have it row 2 that inherit and row 4 that inherits. Also we have a float. So we have our paragraph, and then inside that we have the image, and it's floating, and then the image flowing to the left while all the words are wrapped around it. And you guys can see that's from here. So here you guys have an image, and our CSS values. We have our input class, value, button text, light blue, even. So every even number inherits. And that's a little bit more about lesson 6.1. So going on for lesson 6.2, which would be create a navbar. Go ahead and use everything you learned so far from lesson 1 to 5. Now that we're on 6, go ahead and try to create something similar to this called the navbar features. So here you'll have your navbar home, feature, pricing, about, and the search box. Your search box doesn't have to work just because that's like a more of an index coding, and there you will use a spider to navigate whatever keywords that you type in. So that's going to be your 6.1. So here the 6.2. So here that's going to be your 6.2 lab, and then your 6.3. From your 6.2, go ahead and create a layout. So from your last lesson with the navbar you build, continue to build a complete layout for the page with a simple layout of your choice. You may choose 1, 2 to 3 columns with the sidebar or footer. You may choose to create a holy grail layout. You could create 2. Go ahead and take some time to complete this CSS advanced layout, and go ahead and use some of the Flexbox website layout if you want to create your layout from here. So that's going to be your lab for 6.3. And then also for that, continuing on, we have your HTML CSS website. So continue from your navbar and layout you create today. Practice building a 3-page website. Each page should use the same layout you created in the previous exercise. Take the time to make your site look great as possible. So here from this lab, you use everything you learn from your lessons from all your CSS lessons, and go ahead and implement it. And your site should include HTML tables, lists, hyperlinks, and images. All links and images on your page should work properly, and everything should be presented in a great CSS design. So this is going to be about lesson 6.4, and that's going to be it for all the lessons for lesson 6. So here I'm going to show you some example of how my site is laid out. So here's my lab 6 HTML. I went ahead and type in my meta. So here I have initial skills 1.0. There's going to be example icons and navigation. Here, I have an author and content. I have a link to CSS style sheet. I have a header. So I'll go ahead and break it down all the way down to my name, Mr. Bowie, article, instructor, section 1, HTML5, section 2, CSS3. And then my footer is going to be Amazon full stack developer. And then here I'm gonna have a div class called Navbar inner, container, buttons, and here I'm gonna go ahead and create all those navbars. Span class, here I'm gonna have an A class brand, hrefs, so that's gonna be linked. And here I'm gonna have a link to my text file. Here I'm just gonna name it home. Another text file called features. Another pricing, which would be a JPEG. Another text file from about, and another text file. So here from the text files, you guys will probably implement your HTML files, and here you will have like about 5 contents of what's going on. Your search bar doesn't have to work. I'm just making something really quick. And down here you will have your JavaScript. Place it at the end so your page will load faster. Inside your CSS here you will have your body. So here in my body I have a background image of a Lion King. And then I have a box size and a border box. Here I'm going to go ahead and name some of my classes of my main, article, navigations, article side, footer, article, navigation, A side, header and footer, my nav in bar. I want to go ahead and create some button, some button classes and IDs. So these are the IDs and these are the classes. So I went ahead and create a hover, active, and I went and go ahead and, displayed it, use the width and height, and have a background color. Went ahead and create a float, display block, nav bar, and I'm just gonna go ahead and just quickly go over the codes here. Now when I go ahead and pull this up, so I'll go ahead and type in my lab6.html. This is gonna be how my CSS and HTML looks. So here I have my nav bar, my home. See that the link works, so that will go to your HTML. Same thing with features, same thing with pricing. So here you guys are gonna go ahead and take your associate MTA Windows Server Administration Fundamental Exam 98365, and I have on my about. Go ahead and create your about me, and then I have a search bar. So here your search bar doesn't have to work. And then here I'm gonna go ahead and have my layout. My header, my article, my section, and my footer. And this is going to be a quick website that I want you guys to build and create for your whole lesson for lesson 6. And that's it for this whole lesson plan, and hopefully you guys go ahead and get started on it and be great full stack web developers. So that's going to be the 2 stack that we're going to be implementing.